Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to bring you today a really exciting case study or an example of how consumer and community involvement can work in fundamental or basic research. My name is Ashley. I'm a research fellow at the Monash Centre for Health Implementation and Research and a project manager at Monash Partners. And I'm joined today with Deb Langridge, who is the Consumer and Community Involvement Program Head at the Western Australian Health Translation Network. And together we're working on this project called Consumer and Community Involvement, Implementation Impact, Implementation Research for Impact, or CCI for short. And we just wanted to bring this opportunity to you today and share this amazing work. So just as we get started, I'd love to introduce to you our two stars of the show. We've got Stu Hayes and Associate Professor Yu. And then I'll introduce Deb, and we'll get started just chatting about how this whole partnership came together. So Stu, I'll throw it over to you for some introductions, please.
Well, hello, my name is Sue Hayes, and I've been a consumer representative for about the last 10 years in various roles. I do have quite a lengthy lived history with cancer and feel very fortunate to be in the position I am now, where I'm well and healthy. And I wanted to give back to the research community that had done so much to develop the science that's allowed me to stay in good health. So originally I was involved as a consumer representative on research grant panels, and was doing that for quite a number of years, and then decided it was important to actually experience the world outside of the grant panels and on the other side of the fence with people applying for the grants. And so put my hand up for the Consumer and Community Involvement Program in WA to be available as a research buddy for someone working in fundamental research. And luckily for me, my match-up was with you, who I'll throw to you now to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Yu Sok Choi, Associate Professor at UWA Human Sciences, and I lead a cell mechanobiology lab with about 6 PhD students and 2 honor students. So the main research focus we have is to understand how cells, normally cancer cells, behave and change their behaviors upon filling the tissue mechanics. So we know that in breast cancer, tissue normally become dense, stiff, and the cells within those tissues, especially the cancer cells, should respond to those changes. So after understanding how they respond, we try to come up with some treatment options, especially working with the consumer investigator like Sue.
Fantastic. And so how long have you guys been working together now, since maybe like the first date to like now?
About 4 years.
4 years? And still going strong, you reckon?
Oh, I don't know. What do you reckon?
I guess so. We're doing this together now.
Yes, definitely.
And so the reason I sort of, heard about you guys is through this event that, Deb, you were talking about at the end of last year. Could you tell us a little bit more about this event, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So the CCI program in WA, part of our role is to bring people with lived experience together with researchers, as well as building capacity and understanding. But what we had been hearing and continue to hear from the research sector broadly is most people now understand why involvement is important and what it brings in terms of research, whether or not that's ideation or prioritization or translation at the very end of the research cycle. But the most often asked question is, but what does consumer and community involvement, or CCI, look like for me in my particular kind of research? And we would hear that more often than not in that basic science, fundamental science, discovery science, classification across the board. And so what we wanted to do at the end of last year was to showcase some brilliant examples of what involvement can look like, different ways that that people with lived experience can work as part of research teams, to work alongside and with, and to be part of the team to make research, as relevant and as good as it can be. And so we ran a CCI in Basic Science Research forum where we showcased 3 different projects, WA projects. And one of them was bringing together the Sue and You show, which was remarkable all in itself, but it was to showcase and to really share the reality of the theory into practice. What does CCI look like? I was going to say the good, bad, and the ugly, but there is no ugly in this situation. It is a remarkable relationship. But to honestly, for Sue and You co-presented together to share their story, but also what it looks like, and the benefits, but also the challenges as well.
Fantastic. So I might throw it over to your side and just ask around, when you first met Sue 4 years ago, what did that look like, and how did you figure out how to work with her, and what projects she could be involved in and to what capacity?
So I assume a lot of fundamental researchers or basic researchers 4 years back would be in the similar situation that whenever you read a funding application guidance, that you have to have some type of consumer engagement. So I was in that position. Luckily, we had CCI team at WA, so I contacted them. We went through some type of scientific Tinder system, and then we literally shop each other. And then I found very seasoned consumer investigator Sue. So we had 2 meetings, and then we learned each other. So that we've tried one application through Cancer Council WA, which was not successful, but we continued the relationship, which I learned a lot. And second time, fortunately, we got it up. So we've been doing the project together. So technically, I can comfortably call this as a team rather than just a tick box experience.
Fantastic. And Sue, how have you been involved in, or what have you been up to in some of You's research?
Principally, I meet with him and his team, sometimes the team, sometimes just You on his own, depending on what a chaotic time of year it is, with grants and PhDs and everything else. Sometimes the team are way too busy. But for example, the first time I met with him, he made sure that I met the PhD students working in his lab. They gave me a lab tour. I thought it was really, really important part of the process was You giving them the opportunity to learn how to communicate with a non-scientist. So encouraging them to present their science and their research to me, show me around the lab, and actually talk in terms that I could understand as being a complete non-scientist. So that was really important. And then ongoing from that, most times they might present something to me that they're taking to a conference or a poster or something like that. Or occasionally, You and I just go for a coffee together and we talk about non-work things as well as work things. And it's worked out very well. I think what's been interesting for me has also been, because I've got involved in a number of other research projects across a range of areas, I've been able to see some opportunities perhaps for what I'd call cross-pollination between an immunologist that I'm working with at St John of God, for example, and something that she mentioned in her project that I thought, wow, that could work together with You's mechanobiology project, and et cetera, et cetera. So in a way, I kind of also see my role as being a bit of a bumblebee going around and doing a bit of cross-pollination, probably with about as much intelligence as that bumblebee, but it happens.
That's fantastic. I love that you've become that, that cross connector, and it just showcases the importance of the experience that you bring, but also that level of communication and how important that is between researchers and the lived experience and the general community. So you tell me a little bit more about how you got so good at explaining what cell mechanic, and I'm going to butcher this, I'm sorry, mechanical biology.
I wouldn't say I was very good at to begin with. We get quite a bit of training, and we were almost forced to do it because a lot of applications require the lay term summary. And then there are institutional research officers who are fantastic at helping us rewriting those things. So it will take time. But again, talking to someone like Sue would greatly help because I can read her facial expression whenever I try something. Then I'll try again because the communication is really important. If I can't make her understand, I wouldn't be able to make other lay people understand what we do. So which is almost meaningless.
And the benefit of this relationship is that there's permission and trust, and that so there's permission for you to, you know, kind of say, can I run this past you? What do you think? But also Sue to then give feedback and guidance, you know, in that process. So yeah, it's been amazing to see, you know, the ongoing relationship develop, which has been brilliant.
And that's the key thing, is that relationship building process just doesn't happen overnight. You know, it's taken 4 years to get to this stage with, you know, things in the pipeline as well, which is amazing. And so have you faced any challenges working in this area of research at all?
I've really struggled to find an answer to that question, because not really. I think because I find the learning part of it so exciting and interesting. Obviously, you know, you have to be prepared to live sometimes. I mean, I attend various lectures and conferences and things, and you know, I have to accept sometimes that I'll sit there and perhaps 60% of what's being said is going right over my head, but I understand the key parts of it, and I can relate it to the real world of patients and carers. So I think just being in that place of, you know, accepting that I don't have to understand spatial transcriptomics or something like that, or the complexities of mechanobiology. That doesn't matter. What matters is I understand how it affects the lives of people that are facing these diseases. That's the key thing.
Beautiful. And so we were talking a little bit before we started recording about what's next for the You and Sue show. Can you tell us a recap about that, please?
So what's next for us?
Yeah, in terms of future collaborations together.
Yes, I really hope that I can keep using Sue as my consumer investigator. I almost assume that she feels that she's a part of the Choi Lab or You Sue team.
Still on a t-shirt.
Yeah, we had a lab hoodie which is a pink.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so we really like to continuously learning from Sue, but at the same time, I really want to see that Sue mentoring the upcoming consumer investigator. So the many other fundamental researchers who would probably be very frustrated and intimidated by initiating this relationship. So that's another thing that I really want to see as well. And at the same time, within my team, we try to do, as Sue mentioned before, so I normally invite PhD students in our meetings so they can experience a little bit of this consumer community engagement early up.
Fantastic. And it's so good to have that ongoing sustainability going through in terms of upskilling, new consumers to come and get involved in your program. And I love that it's embedded throughout the entire program. It's not just one project. It's your whole team gets involved, which is really lovely to see. The other thing I wanted to touch on was one thing that you found or I guess one piece of advice you would share with other researchers. We were talking about sort of the expectations between consumers and researchers in the fundamental research space. How do you deal with that?
So we got to admit that there will be fundamental disagreement between what the fundamental researchers normally focus on. So we normally tend to focus on the answers for the scientific questions, and sometimes we can dig a hole very deep. So the consumer investigator normally focus on developing tools for diagnostics as well as the treatment, and the researchers in biomedical science or engineering, the final ultimate goal should be improving human health anyway. So we the whenever we meet each other, the one of the output that I normally remind myself is, okay, let's keep focusing on driving our questions more towards developing treatment rather than just keep answering the scientific questions that we can always come up with. So I would urge the new researchers who are thinking of this relationship that they're not going to just bother you and inhibiting from you to be able to do what you've been wanting to do. It's really helping you to refocus your skill set and expertise into developing a more translational research.
Amazing. And Deb, that is the purpose of consumer and community involvement, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that theory into practice, the translation, but also I think the key, that point of difference where the light bulb goes on is where people can see it and go, actually, that's what maybe I could do that. Maybe that's what that looks like for me. But the bigger picture and the complementary components of it, as you said, sometimes so consumers aren't meant to be an overnight scientist. That's that they're not there to do that. They're there to bring share their own opportunity of expertise, which, unless a researcher has lived and breathed whatever it is that the output of or the end, the amazing result of their research, unless they've lived and breathed it themselves, that lens of expertise can't be complete without some additional voices like Sue's in the project. And that's when this works together well, that's where the recognition of the expertise is brilliant, but also it goes beyond the particular project, as you has said. But it also it's not a poke or a judgment, in a bad way. It's because we all tend to get really focused sometimes and go down, the rabbit hole and forget to take a step back. And I think that balanced approach, we know, especially in kinds of research where it is so focused, and very, very specific, it's great to have a balance in the perspective that helps the overall project across the board. So especially in this area, we've seen it's been great to share stories because that relevance, it helps brings it to life, but also that it can be done. And it doesn't have to be done. It's not one size fits all. And, Sue and you shared, the way that they do it, but other basic science projects do things in other different ways as well. So it's good to see that it's there's not just, one box to open. There's lots of different things, and it can be tailored to fit not only the project, but also the individuals as well. So that Tinder, anyway, the matching process is important because, Sue and you are the absolute beneficiaries of just clicking and getting along, and the respect and relationships are a big part of that.
Beautiful. And Sue, we'll throw it to you for the final word. Do you have any last bits of advice you would like to share to either people with lived experience who want to get into research or other researchers who are looking to get into consumer and community involvement?
I think in terms of advice to the researchers, I'd say to just be open to whatever information is available to you. Be open to setting up a channel of communication, which may take some time to develop, because if you're a basic science researcher who's only used to thinking within the terms of your detail and complexity of your science, it may take a while before you can actually communicate back and forth with someone who's a non-scientist, but it'll happen if you're prepared to put in a bit of time. In terms of advice to consumer representatives who are interested in getting involved as a research buddy or a consumer investigator in basic science, I'd say to not be intimidated by the science and by these extraordinary people that you will meet. I mean, to me, the great joy of this whole process has been, the wonderful and interesting and brilliantly clever people that you meet. You just think, oh, the world's going to be a better place with all these people doing great science, which is why I try and, help get all their research grants up. But if, as a consumer, you have to understand, you don't need to understand the detail of the research. You're not a scientist. You're not trying to tell them how to do their job. But what you're bringing to the relationship is something really, really critical, which is context and value. So your point of view has value. And yes, you may not be a professor, you may not have multiple PhDs, none of those things. It doesn't matter. You have the expertise of knowing how this disease impacts people's lives, whether you're a carer or a patient. And that is valuable in the broader context of medical research. It's an important contributor to shaping that research.
Beautiful last words. Well, thank all of you. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Deb, and thank you, particularly for taking the time out today to share with everyone a brilliant example of how consumers can be working in partnership with fundamental researchers or basic researchers. And I think your insights have really set that benchmark high for others in this space. So thank you again. And I'm sure we'll be hearing lots more from this group soon. So we'll wait to hear.